Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and best regards from Helsinki. First of all, I'd like to give you the warmest regards from my Minister Anna Berner. She was unfortunately unable to join us here today. We had our governmental budget negotiations started off today, so it goes without saying that was something she could not miss, so she had to be there. But it is a great honor for me to have this opportunity to present some views on this topic on behalf of Finland. And as the moderator said, it's a little bit challenging to speak here after lunch, but I try to be a little bit, keep you awake at least. So we have at the ministry, during the past, let's say 2 years, been looking a lot at what we call the big picture. So Finland's position is, as we know, at least from a logistic point of view, quite challenging. But we see that future infrastructure projects could change this actually quite dramatically. And this is why we have been working a lot with long-term visions lately at the ministry. I will, during my presentation, look at questions which are related to the Rail Baltic project, and the results of 2 studies which were published this winter allow us to speak about our vision of the future, namely the Helsinki-Tallinn fixed link feasibility study project and the Arctic corridor study. I will also highlight a little bit on our strategic interest to extend the Nordic Sea-Baltic TEN-T core network corridor to the north. Accessibility is, as we all in this room know very well, the key question. And in our future, in our vision for the future, Finland would have improved and completely new connections in the high north of Europe and on the southern shores of the Baltic Sea. So completely new connections would work as boost for economic activities and growth and provide an excellent additional alternative for transporting goods and people in the northern parts of Europe. Competitiveness and the real European added value has been in our focus all the time doing this work. As said quite many times already today, the importance of the Arctic region is growing. And from the perspective of the Nordic countries and the EU, so the long-term development of the Arctic region depends on large part on a sustainable and efficient infrastructure and transport and communications network. It is evident that the world is changing, and this has implications on the Arctic. So the economic significance of the region is rising, and more countries recognize the possibilities of the area. So new infrastructure connections, including the Rail Baltica railway connection, the Helsinki-Tallinn tunnel and the Arctic Railway, would change Finland's interpretation of its positioning on the map of Europe. So this is mainly, let's say, the reason why we're having ongoing pre-studies in Finland concerning, first of all, the Helsinki-Tallinn fixed link with our Estonian colleagues, and also the Arctic Railway project with our Norwegian colleagues. The Arctic Railway is an important European project that would create a closer link between the northern Arctic Europe and continental Europe. The connection would improve the conditions for many industries in the northern areas. A working group or task force will now in May this year start to further examine the routing from Rovaniemi to Kirkenes up north with that line. So the pre-studies we made estimate that transportation on the Arctic Railway would mainly include minerals, fish products, raw wood and wood industry products. So potential material for transport are also natural resources of the Barents area and products to be transported in the future via the Northeast Passage. The overall costs of the routing via Kirkenes are estimated at around 2.9 billion euros. Around 2 billion euros of this would be on the Finnish side and approximately 900 million euros on the Norwegian side. So it is stated in the pre-studies that assessing the socio-economic feasibility of the rail line alternatives is very challenging. And we heard today earlier in the morning, I think it was in the ministerial panel at least, that we all know that when we have these mega projects like this and very long-term projects, so it's extremely difficult to evaluate all the impacts, especially the socio-economic impacts on this. And this is something we have to take into account also in this work, of course. So we quite agree on that one. So according to the transport volume estimate, none of the alternatives estimated here in the pre-studies are socio-economically feasible. But however, changes, for example, in the costs of different transport modes or in the region's business and industry may significantly change the situation. Research work on the Arctic Rail Line will continue together with Norway, as said before, and the task force will be appointed to determine the future stages and schedule of the work. The group will examine, by the end of this year, the key questions relating to the chosen routing, such as environmental issues, permit procedures, costs, finance structures, and finance models, for example. I will very briefly just mention this because Mr. Kari Ruohonen will have a presentation about this Helsinki-Tallinn fixed link after me, so I know he will be very upset with me if I talk very long about this, so I'll be very brief. But it is another very extremely interesting project, and it would connect, together with the Rail Baltica railway project and the Arctic Railway Line, the whole Arctic region with the heart of Europe via Finland. So it goes without saying that the tunnel would be a significant project for all of Finland and Europe, not only for the cities of Helsinki and Tallinn. And on the basis of the final report published in February this year on the railway tunnel project between Helsinki and Tallinn, the Finest Link, the Finnish Ministry of Transport and Communications has set up a task force to examine whether and how to proceed with the project. One of the objectives of the task force is to examine the need for further studies and how they could be financed. In this work, the group will take into account the results and recommendations of the Finnish study completed in February. And the group is also to consider the far-reaching economic impacts of the tunnel, questions related to financing, connections between transport and logistics, and related business models, and also on smooth travel change. This pre-study will be finalized in May this year. Then very briefly, EU's role as one of the world's largest investors in the Arctic can be further boosted. When preparing for the next multi-annual financial framework, the needs of the EU Arctic member states need to be taken into account. Large infrastructure projects, such as transport corridors connecting the Arctic regions with the rest of Europe and improving communications networks, should be high on the EU's agenda. And investment needs to transport are increasing, especially in the north. So we firmly believe that the network is not complete without the inclusion of the most northern parts of Europe. The extension of the North Sea, Baltic and Scandinavian Mediterranean core network corridors would link Finland and Sweden better to the European transport networks, and it would open up new financing possibilities for the rail infrastructure also in the northern parts of the countries. And we are also very much looking forward to the future discussions on the CEF regulation. So after this, should I say introduction, I finally get back to my actual topic here. Why is then Rail Baltica important to Finland? Well, first of all, of course, Rail Baltica will connect Tallinn to Warsaw and will therefore be a new, faster connection and railway service also from Finland to the continental destinations and markets in Central Europe. The Rail Baltic project has a crucial role in changing the transport network in our neighboring countries. And Rail Baltica has, of course, an important role in connecting together the Helsinki-Tallinn tunnel project and the Arctic Railway Line, the Arctic region with the heart of Europe via Finland. Nevertheless, it's a prerequisite for all these other projects and for the North Sea Baltic Core Network Corridor. So this is why Rail Baltica has been called, let's say, a project of the century in the Baltic States, but its significance is truly a European one. And also, of course, having big planning and construction project located this close to Finland is also interesting from the point of view of Finnish industries and business. So the current economic situation is favorable at the moment because of low construction costs. So it's extremely important that companies outside the three beneficiaries have an open access to planning and construction works also. And actually, with this, I will end my presentation and give the floor to the next speaker. So just let me conclude by saying that we live in extremely interesting times. It's very nice to have these big visions and to think of long-term planning, and you can see that the huge possibilities that are in front of us in the future. So we're still working with the pre-studies quite a lot in Finland, but all they show are, though the findings will be very interesting, I think, for the whole area. And of course, at this time, I'd like to end up with saying, wishing the best of success, of course, with Rail Baltica. And Finland will continue, of course, to follow the project with, let's say, even higher interest than before. So the best of luck. Thank you.